Hey there, everyone. Steve Metrics here of No Debate Sports, and today I'm going to show you why selecting your fantasy defense is like baking a twice baked potato. So, we know that the NFL schedule is being released today, and with that schedule being released, when it comes to fantasy, you want to be able to select a defense that you know is a strong defense and has a favorable schedule. So, how do we do that? Well, what's going to be showing up in the coming week or week after, we are debuting our No Debate Sports website. And the big thing we have on our website is our fantasy depth tracker. So this is powered by fantasydata.com, fantasypoints.com, and the cool thing about our tracker is it shows us elite caliber players. So what you're seeing here is we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens depth chart. And what is built here is a, bono value, which is a bona fide number value of each player. So each player has this bono that is calculated throughout the course of the season by our metrics, and we're going to show you that in another video in the future. And what we do is we standardize all of those values. So looking at a player here like Mark Andrews, we know is an elite caliber tight end. Well, Lamar Jackson is also pretty darn close to that value, but he's not quite there. So for the purpose of our depth tracker, he is considered not that elite. However, when it comes to figuring out your defense for your upcoming fantasy season, what we did was we gave a little more extra value to players like Lamar Jackson and considered them elite. When a defense plays against a player of that caliber, and same thing with Mark Andrews, there's a lot of attention that needs to be focused on those players because they are so elite. So that's where we want to make sure we are getting the most elite players from each team. Going right below Baltimore, you can see that's going on with Buffalo as well. So definitely Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are at that elite caliber. But Gabe Davis, who's that number 2 wideout, is close to it, but not quite. So when it comes to our purpose of figuring out for the defenses, we did give him that extra bump. So Buffalo has 3 elite players on its offense that you have to be concerned about at all times. So that's how we did that. So looking at our count for each and every team, this is where these values came from. So at the very top, we have Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. And then right below them, you got Jacksonville with, and this comes into again where we actually made that adjustment. You have Trevor Lawrence, you have Zay Jones, you have Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. So Evan Ingram really stepped up as being one of the top tight ends last season, and it showed. So what we do there is we take those offenses that have all of those elite caliber players, and we have the count of those Bono elite players. So now we want to see how they interact with the defenses they play against. So what we did was we calculated, well, we just organized that previous list you see here of the count of every single player, and now we have that here. So we have everything just alphabetically sorted, and then I alphabetically sorted each and every defense and the schedule of opponents that they're playing against. So right here we have our column of non-divisional opponents, and adjacent to that you have all of their divisional opponents. So what I did then was I figured out how many of those players on those opposing teams are those defenses going to encounter. So what we did was we kept track of that alphabetically. So you see all of those teams listed there, and then the opposing elite caliber players listed to the right. And that's all of the total of the teams they're playing against. A really interesting thing there is you see those Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs are going up against some high octane offenses this upcoming 2023 season. So their count is at 34. and that puts them at the top of the list. So this is all organized by that total of those opposing elite players. So we got that there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to standardize those values. So I did some mathematics into standard deviations. And for this, the unique thing here is that we're going to actually have it go backwards. So we want to have those higher ranking standard deviations at the bottom for the teams that play less potent offenses. And then we want the negative, the not so good standard deviation values at the top for the defenses who are going up against higher octane offenses. So you're going to see that in KC, Detroit, Minnesota, Tampa, LA Chargers, Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to have some tough opponents that they're going to be playing with who can definitely hang up points really quick. So that's why we're going to be a little bit cautious of that. So if we take all that and keep going to the right, now what we can see is we have that list of everything that we did over there, and it's all alphabetically sorted. So we got that there. And then what we did was we did this same kind of standardization with how the defenses actually scored. So that is what we have to the right here. Whatever your defensive scoring system is, once you standardize it, you will actually have those values. And then you can compare those with the values that you found for this year for those opposing players. So that's a fun way to take the 2023 schedule and bake it with the 2022 defensive scoring you saw from the year before. So now combined, we have our twice baked potato, and we have all of our teams summed up together from 22 and 23. Now, once we do that and then we sort that, we have everything listed like so. And then we also did a standardization of those values as well. So it's pretty interesting to see who really ends up being the most elite defenses when you combine last year and this year's data and figure out who is at the top once you have that standard deviation. So right here, it's pretty interesting that you're going to see that Dallas, Philly, and San Francisco are by far your most elite caliber defenses you can get. Their Bono values are way higher than the rest of the pack. I mean, their values are at 2.5 to almost just under 2, and then you start stretching into the ones and the zeros. And negative isn't always bad when it comes to this, but it just means that that is average. So when you see 0 and a little bit below 0, you're starting to work your way away from the averages. And then the very interesting part about this for fantasy defenses is the bottom of this list. So when we take last year plus this year and figure out who's going to be at the back of the pack, well, these are obviously defenses you don't want to select. You don't want to go with these. Possibly Atlanta. They have been making a lot of significant movements. Pittsburgh as well. Definitely, as you see with teams in the draft, you can definitely kind of manipulate this in a way that works for you. But I would still be overly cautious of this because any great defense that is still on the field for a long amount of time is not going to end the season as a great defense. They're going to get winded. It's very hard to play elite caliber defense when you're on the field almost 40 minutes a game. So that's where I would be concerned about your Vikings, Chiefs, and Lions. And the other interesting thing is look at who plays those opponents. So what we're seeing is we are seeing a lot of NFC North teams down here. Even the Green Bay Packers aren't that far above the bottom teams on defense. And then we also see a little bit of AFC West action going on here between the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Raiders as well. So the interesting part here is who plays the AFC West and the NFC North. Well, ironically, it is the AFC West and NFC North teams. So if you can grab those NFC North players on offense and those AFC West players on offense, they will collide and play each other during the course of the season. So that gives you a little bit of leg up. We got a few NFC South teams in here as well, but that's pretty much how you're going to want to figure out how to take your fantasy defense and pinpoint the defenses you want to play against with your fantasy offensive players. So, all in all, this comes out to be a fantasy twice baked potato. And I really hope this helps you out for the 2023 upcoming season. And wish you a lot of luck with that. So, I'm Steve Metrics of No Debate Sports. Thanks again for watching. List anything you learned or comment or anything you've taken away from this. Add that to our comments. And we'll be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you next time.